Hi, and welcome back to English Lessons with Stephanie. This is reading lesson 13, Journeys. In this lesson, we'll do a guided paragraph by paragraph reading. Here, you can practice reading out loud. You can listen to each paragraph first, pause the video at the end of the paragraph, and then read out loud for yourself. Throughout, we'll use the GASP method of guessing, answering questions, summarizing, and predicting. This method will help you to read more quickly and fluently. If you don't remember, the GASP method means that we'll guess. We'll mark words or phrases that we don't understand. We'll try to answer any questions by using a dictionary, looking up phrases online, or asking someone for help. At the end, we'll summarize each paragraph. That means look for the main idea, and then predict what we'll read about in the next paragraph before moving on. Let's begin. There is a saying in English, it's not the destination that matters, it's the journey. Or, more plainly put, it's not where you're going that's important, but how you get there. While this is meant to apply to many things in life, I like to think about the literal meaning as it relates to travel. In this first paragraph, there are two sentences that have the same meaning. Which two sentences are they? It's the first and second sentences. You can tell it's these first two sentences because they have similar structures. There's a colon before the main sentence. So in this first sentence, it says, it's not the destination that matters, it's the journey. And in the second sentence, it's not where you're going that's important, but how you get there. More plainly put means in other words. So this is telling us if you don't understand this first sentence, you can look at the second sentence to help you understand the first sentence. Here is how we can guess at the meanings of destination and journey. Destination is where you're going, and journey is how you get there. We know that this idea is important if it's stated twice. The writer is making sure that the reader really understands this. Ask yourself, do you have a similar saying in your native language? Do you say something in your language that has the same meaning? Because we have two sentences that state the same thing, we can guess that this is close to the main idea of the paragraph. Now let's predict what we'll read about in the next paragraph. When I was young, traveling meant flying. I loved everything about flying. I loved sitting by the window, watching the world below. I liked packing a little bag filled with books and snacks for the flight. The longer the flight, the better. I loved airports and didn't mind doing 1 or 2 stopovers. I even enjoyed the little meals they served on the flights and booking my tickets online, choosing the best routes, and finding airports I'd never been to. In this paragraph, we could combine two sentences to get the main idea. So think about that, and we'll come back to it at the end of the paragraph. Let's look at some of the vocabulary. We have the word packing. I liked packing a little bag. What do you think that means? In the bag, I packed books and snacks. What do you think snacks are? This underlined sentence is related to our grammar lesson this week. The longer the flight, the better. What does this mean? Next, we have the verb booking. What does it mean to book tickets? What would be a synonym for booking? And finally, we have the word routes. What do you think routes are? At the end of this paragraph, pause to see which two sentences you could combine to get the main idea of this paragraph. I would combine this first and second sentence. When I was young, I loved everything about flying. Because this paragraph is in the past tense, I loved, I liked, I enjoyed, it's important to show that this is happening in the past. Now reflect. Do you like flying? Over time, however, I began to enjoy flying less and less. The more people flew, the more crowded the planes became. It was getting harder and more expensive to get window seats. Airports became more stressful. They even stopped serving meals on most flights. And on top of all this, I suddenly became afraid of flying. I feel anxious from the moment we take off until the moment we land. Flying is now my least favorite part of traveling. This paragraph begins with another grammatical structure from lesson 13. I began to enjoy flying less and less. And the more people flew, the more crowded the planes became. Take a moment to think about what these sentences mean. Next, we have the phrase on top of all this. What do you think that means? On top of all this, I suddenly became afraid of flying. I hope you know what afraid means. Being afraid means you have fear, you're scared of something. You don't want to do it. So knowing that, what do you think the word anxious means? If you feel anxious from the moment you take off until the moment you land, what is this feeling? We know it's related to being afraid, to being scared. These two verbs, take off and land, are being presented as opposites or extremes. The beginning of something until the end of something. So what do you think these two verbs mean? Pause here a moment, try to say the main idea of this paragraph in one sentence, and then guess what you think we'll read about in the next paragraph. In class 1, I talked about a 2-year road trip that I took with my now husband. Traveling over land, we could stop wherever we wanted, whenever we wanted. Our dog sat on my lap, so he too could look out the window. The slowness of driving means that the journey is very much part of the adventure. Some people travel even more slowly. We met people traveling the same long roads by bicycle. In the first sentence, we talk about a road trip. What do you think a road trip is? It says I took this road trip with my now husband. What do you think now husband means? In this paragraph, we talk about driving, traveling over the road. I don't say in this paragraph whether I like driving or not. But what do you think? Do you think I prefer driving or flying? And what sentences or what words make you think so? Now guess what we'll read about in the next paragraph. Traveling by train can be even slower, but more relaxing. On a train, you can get up and walk around, and you don't have to worry about finding directions, getting lost, or getting too tired to drive. The United States, sadly, doesn't have a very impressive train system. The last time I traveled by train was just for a few hours in Spain. Again, I happily sat by the window enjoying a coffee while reading, writing, and watching the world go by. It was such a wonderful ride. I wished it could have lasted longer. In this paragraph, we move from talking about cars to talking about trains. And in the first sentence, we say that traveling by a train can be more relaxing. More relaxing here refers to the paragraph before, more relaxing than traveling by car. So what do you think relaxing means? In the second sentence, we see the phrasal verb get up. What does it mean here to get up and walk around? In the next sentence, we have the adverb sadly. The United States, sadly, doesn't have a very impressive train system. What is the purpose of the adverb sadly in this sentence? Is the United States sad? Who is sad? Here, the adverb sadly means I'm giving my opinion. I am sad that the US doesn't have a very impressive train system. And finally, in the last sentence, we have the verb lasted. What do you think lasted means? So pause here, take a moment to give the main idea of this paragraph, and then predict what we'll read about in the next paragraph. I haven't traveled by sea very much. I get seasick easily on small boats, and the idea of being on a large cruise ship with thousands of passengers doesn't appeal to me at all. However, I once did a river cruise, which I loved. River cruise ships are not nearly as large as ocean cruise liners, and you can see a lot from the river. Traveling by water makes me more nervous than traveling by land, but not as nervous as traveling by air. For the past year, I haven't traveled at all. As much as I wonder where we'll go next, I wonder how we'll get there. These are our last two paragraphs. Let's start by looking at this question here. What is the general idea of statement 1? The idea of being on a large cruise ship with thousands of passengers doesn't appeal to me at all. In the sentence, we have the verb appeal, which might be new to you. But let's still try and guess. Does this sentence mean she likes large cruise ships? She does not like large cruise ships. A large cruise ship is better than a small boat, or a small boat is better than a large cruise ship. To look at this idea, we have to look at the first part of the sentence. I say I get seasick easily on small boats. If you could guess what seasick means, look at the word parts, sea and sick. Seasick means that you don't feel well, you feel ill, you feel sick when you're on the water. Next, we have the conjunction and. And means we are connecting two similar ideas. So this is going to say something negative or something bad about boats. And instead of small boats, we're talking about large boats. So here we can guess that the second answer is correct. She does not like large cruise ships. And that would help you to guess at the meaning of the word appeal. Now let's look at the second underlined sentence. Traveling by water makes me more nervous than traveling by land, but not as nervous as traveling by air. So according to this sentence, what makes her the most nervous, somewhat nervous, and the least nervous. Let's try and put these methods of travel in order. First, she mentions traveling by water, then traveling by land, and then traveling by air. So does water make her the most nervous, then land, and then air? Or is it air that makes her the most nervous, then water, then land? Or water, then air, then land? Put these in order in your head. So traveling by water makes me more nervous than traveling by land, but not as nervous as traveling by air. So because of this but, we can see that water should be above land, but below air. So not as nervous as traveling by air means less nervous than traveling by air. So the correct answer would be air, water, and then land. Okay, so this is the end of our reading lesson today. So that's the end of today's lesson. To review, you should summarize what you've read in today's passage in just a few sentences. Go back and review any parts that you're still confused about, and reflect. How do you feel about these 4 methods of travel? Definitely continue with writing lesson 13, where we'll talk about all this vocabulary in greater detail and how to write with it, and the speaking lessons where we'll talk about these important topics. If you're enjoying these free lessons, please remember to like, comment, ask questions, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.